Pronty, Fishy Adventure is an underwater Metroidvania by 18light with striking similarities to Hollowknight on the surface, but that sets itself apart through its interesting use of traveling companion as well as mechanics that are only possible in an underwater environment. While the similarities of Pronty to Hollowknight are many and it is clearly an inspiration, Pronty quickly sets itself apart by how it manages movement compared to similar Metroidvanias, with a lot more freedom in basic movement thanks to the chosen setting, as well as a fairly interesting take on combat by utilizing more of a traveling companion than a basic weapon. So you're not going to find any double jumps here, but you are going to find some interesting dash and movement mechanics. First though, we'll look at the similarities to existing games for those unfamiliar with the genre before going in depth on the differences. As with most of the games in this subgenre of Metroidvanias, they utilize a bonfire style system based around anchoring your play around specific player activated locations instead of just arbitrary invisible checkpoints like many platformers. These locations provide the opportunity to heal, basic recovery items, and the ability to modify your character's current loadout. In this case, it keeps it fairly simple, with your loadout consisting mostly of charm-like memory boards, with bonuses that will seem very familiar to players of other Metroidvanias like, as we've mentioned several times, Hollowknight. In addition to these basic functionalities, you also learn an assortment of active abilities you can use with your companion Pronty to do everything from deflect projectiles to dart through hazards and even deal boosted amounts of damage with charge-up moves. This merges well with the fact that your weapon is actually a fairly unique weapon compared to other similarly styled Metroidvanias, where instead of being anchored to your character like a sword or a whip, or even simply shot from your character like a gun or a bow, your weapon is in fact your traveling companion Pronty, which means it will attack from its own independent location with quick jabs and dashes wherever you aim it. This leads some interesting dynamics in a wide variety of battles you'll encounter in the game, since it takes almost a tale of two brothers approach where you're doing dodging and evading with one hand while striking and aiming with the other. And while it sounds chaotic, it flows exceptionally well without being overwhelming or distracting because the control scheme is actually well designed, especially for mouse and keyboard. While I don't like over comparing this to Hollowknight, the aesthetic actually falls into a very similar boat, with a cute overall style packing in a plethora of darker undertones of ruined cities, corpses, and general darkness, albeit sometimes softened by humor, such as a sunglasses-wearing fish in a pair of dentures. This style works exceptionally well for this type of game, since in all of the chaos, the larger, more cartoony graphics actually give you stronger silhouettes and are much easier to read for quick decision-making, allowing more complex and interesting boss fights and even normal fights without seeming unfair because it is so much more readable. The story, while on the simple end, is enjoyable and worth diving into and lets you evolve your understanding of it as you progress, much like other similarly structured games. It is worth noting that in my experience with it, Pronty was a bit more linear than its contemporaries and counterparts, but never to a real detriment, since this actually made it much easier to follow along with and know where to go next. To go along with this, the audio design also follows similar principles, with well-designed scores and sound effects to where they keep you easily immersed without being too in your face, and letting the audio cues be far more useful and upfront for decision-making. So you may sit and listen to the music from time to time, but it's not going to choke out the experience of the actual game or drown out the sound effects you need to make decisions. Overall, I would say Pronty is well worth the $18 asking price, and honestly, if it wasn't for people continually passing it off as simply a Hollowknight clone rather than its own distinct entity worth experiencing, I would say it's easily a $25 or higher value game, and I'm seriously interested in seeing some more Metroidvania or even just platformer titles in this vein from this team, since it has shown it's capable of giving even Team Cherry a solid bit of competition.